Welcome to Profit Talks. I'm Profit. Today is Sunday, April 12th, 2026. And since I missed the last week's video, today I want to go over everything that happened in Iran war in the last 2 weeks, mainly the ceasefire at the beginning of the week, and what we can derive from what's been happening since then. So everything has been pretty chaotic, pretty volatile. And there are not a lot of answers, not a lot of easy answers that we have right now. The markets, in my opinion, also reflect this, so we will look at how they behaved at different events, what were the price movements on different markets, and also what are the top holders on different positions right now. So since it's Sunday, we're just before the futures open. We are also a day before US stock market opens. What we recently saw was a rather bearish news when it comes to the end of war. But let's see. To give you context, if you don't follow this war very closely, we've got the ceasefire announcement early this week that was followed by pretty intense round of negotiations in Islamabad. Where on the US side there was Steve Witkoff with Jared Kushner and JD Vance, while on the Iranian side we've got a full delegation from the foreign minister to the chairman of the central bank. So those talks lasted for 21 hours straight, after which there was no concrete deal, but there was some agreement. So we can expect that the two issues that are still not pretty much agreed on are the nuclear issue, so just as before the war, as well as the Strait of Hormuz issue, which is now the new thing since the start of the war. So let's look at some markets, some end of war markets, end of ceasefire markets, Strait of Hormuz, as well as US invasion and some regional expansion of the conflict to try and understand where we are actually heading. So starting with market for a US ex-Iran permanent peace deal. So we can see here this market was created a day after a ceasefire. Initially, the chances for a deal were a lot low at 13%. But soon after, when we learned that JD Vance is coming to the region, they started to increase pretty significantly up to 23% at some point, after which we learned that the initial round of talks didn't really result in any major breakthrough. JD Vance left Islamabad. This news prompted the market to crash even more to 9%. But now we also know that both Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are still in Islamabad, as is the whole Iranian delegation. So probably we can expect some follow-up rounds, and maybe, just maybe, we'll have some bullish news by Monday morning. Now when we look, April 22nd is a pretty tight deadline, in my opinion, because this is a day after the end of ceasefire, and at the same time, it's 10 days from now. So even though Trump really likes a quick deal, often a phased deal, like it was in Gaza, for example, we've got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and we are still on phase 1, 6 months after the initial deal. So even though Trump loves those kinds of agreements, end of ceasefire is a pretty tight deadline. When we look at end of April, we've got a lot more chances, and we also see a little bullish signal here that the chances increase from 13%, so the low after JD Vance left Islamabad, to 17% now, since part of American delegation is still at the site. And when we look at end of May, so the market is probably most aligned with real chances of a permanent deal coming out of this round of ceasefire. So this ceasefire in this round of negotiations, we are at 30% right now, coming from the low of 25%. So we're not as bullish as before at 46% when the talks were very intense overnight. But we're still in a territory that is pretty much a good chance of ending this war. So if you ask me, I personally think those chances are a bit low. I would say there's still a lot of ground to cover. There are still a lot of possibilities for both sides to discuss. I was initially bearish on any ceasefire at all, but since we got one, I would say there is a proper opening, and both sides would want to try and end this conflict before committing to an escalation, because whatever we see next, it should be uh, way more dangerous than what we saw before. So I would say the amount of equipment coming from the US to the Middle East and the amount of troops that we are expecting to arrive in the region soon indicates that the next round of fighting, if it happens, will be much more intense. So I would say both sides will try their best to actually achieve ceasefire, and we will see. But for now, when we also look at top holders, I would say there are sharp traders on both sides. There's also me, but let's leave my positioning for another time. I'm trying here to pretty much objectively analyze what we can see on the market. So on the one side, so here I see some sharps. I want to disclose every single one. I know some of them try to protect their accounts on Polymarket. On the other side here, I see MEPP. He's a pretty sharp Middle East trader. He's a no on end of May strike. When you look at end of April strike, we can also see Scotty now here with 2.5k shares. But considering the size of the bankroll those sharp traders have, I would say these positions are rather small. So MEPP with not even 500 shares here, I wouldn't count it as a signal, considering his P&L is almost 400k. So whatever this is a rather small position that is not indicative of any conviction. At the same time, here we've got, remember, Amalek. He's also a very sharp trader when it comes to politics and geopolitics. He's also got 500 shares. So I would say these are mostly speculation rather than some proper positioning. And when we look at end of ceasefire, here it is no shocker. We've got Scotty now with almost 80k shares. This is a position that is sizable. We've also got Swiss Miss with 13k. We've got Dennis with almost 13k. So pretty much everyone that is sharp and trade those markets is not bullish on ending this conflict by the end of ceasefire. And this is also derived from the chances, because 9% is not a bond on no, but it's close to bond territory at this point. But let's also look at end of ceasefire, and here counterintuitively we've also got low chances that Trump will announce the end of ceasefire anytime soon. So we see that chances of it ending given at the day before or at the day of the end are only at 31%. We can see they're a bit higher since the negotiations stopped, so the first round finished, but they're still at 31% only, which rather indicates that what traders expect at this point is to see an extension of a ceasefire. But even then, they don't really see that this extension will lead to a tangible deal. When we also look at top holders here, there is little surprise. We've got MEPP on the yes side this time, so he must expect the end of ceasefire and another round of escalation. Similarly, here we've got Scotty no. I would say his thesis should be the same, but please remember that 2.5k shares is not a lot for them. So I would say this is speculation rather than conviction. When we look at some other time frames, so April 12th, I would say this is speculation by Scotty no, and this is just bonding by MEPP. When we look at April 15th, There is no strong signal at all. And then April 18th, I would say it's a similar story. So what we can conclude from looking at those two markets, in my opinion, is that uh, some traders expect to see another round of hostilities pretty soon, but the overall aggregate of those both markets rather indicates we will see an extension of a ceasefire without a tangible deal being reached. So this is a situation that happened, for example, with Gaza early last year when we had the initial phased agreement. So there was a phase one that ended, and then for I think 2 weeks, we had an extension of a ceasefire that ultimately ended in another round of escalation. Uh, these prices on those markets indicate that there is like 40% chance we will see that. This is a shot in the dark, but with 30% chance of end of ceasefire and 17 to 30% chance of a permanent deal, let's treat the 30% as we should have an indication by the end of ceasefire if the talks are progressing or not. So this is 30%, this is 30%, so this leaves us with 40% chance of just an extension without nothing tangible. So this is the current positioning of the market when it comes to resolution of the conflict. For this, we can also analyze US invasion market. I had it here. And the US invasion, since the ceasefire dropped from 60% to around 30% before the talks, then it dropped slightly to 28%. And as we learned that JD Vance left Islamabad, we are now at 37% chance of US invasion. I would say this is low compared to chances of a ceasefire, end of ceasefire, and chance of a permanent deal. But on the other hand, 37% here is pretty, oh, nothing. Let's scratch this. So this 37%, I don't know what to think of it, because like for me, when I look at this conflict, I see either a deal being made pretty soon that establishes a new status quo for everyone, or another round of escalation during which a proper invasion, so for example an invasion of Karg Island, is likely, I would say. So I would put those chances here higher, maybe not at 50%, but somewhere in the 40s. But probably this is indicative of general lack of information on the progress of either talks or war. Traders are mostly in the dark, and what they're trading on is either headlines, so just swing trading, or speculation without a high conviction thesis, which can be derived from the fact that the position of the biggest sharp traders are rather small versus their size, which for me means they're not really looking to get a huge exposure on these markets. So if we are at the US invasion, we should also probably look at Karg Island. And Karg Island here trades with 13% discount to invasion proper. That's pretty obvious. I would say that's a good pricing relative to the general invasion market, because Karg Island is not an obvious choice. It's the most probable choice, but there are other islands closer to the Strait of Hormuz, as well as there is Iran proper, so the shoreline that also can be invaded by US troops if we have no ceasefire. Let's also look at top holders at these two markets. So when it comes to Karg Island, the positions here are rather small. We've got Scotty now here with 1,000 shares in the ES, but nothing indicates here any sort of high conviction. on the future. When we also look here at top holders, the story is a bit different. We've got a bit of sharps with big positions on now. So we've got Dennis, Mr. Ozzy, AE News, and Domer, as well as Yatsen, a dropper with pretty big positions on no invasion. I wouldn't say these are the smartest position because like some of those traders believe we will have some escalation, and then chances of the US invasion should increase. So I'm not exactly sure what is their thinking here. Maybe they were too bullish initially on the ceasefire and they're stuck with the position. We'll probably see in the next few days if anything changes here on the no side. But for now, this is the first market we can see with huge positions from the sharps. So conclusion here is that once again, there is no real clarity on what will happen once the talk after the talks. So there's like no big chances of a deal, but also no big chances of no ceasefire, and no big chances of US invasion. I would say this indicates that traders are mostly in the dark, and really anything can happen at this point. My 2 cents on the whole situations are that Kushner and Witkoff are still in Islamabad. So is the Iranian delegation, and before the end of ceasefire, we should see at least a few rounds of talks, and maybe, just maybe, they can result in a proper deal or extension of ceasefire. But I would say there is little middle ground. So I would say we either get a proper deal or we get an escalation, and there is really nothing any side can gain from a prolonged ceasefire with no proper resolution. And that's mostly because of the Strait of Hormuz. Because if we look at Strait of Hormuz markets, we can see that even though the ceasefire is in, the chances of normalization of traffic are rather low. As you can see, they shot up at the initial announcement of the ceasefire because it also assumed the opening of the strait. But then the reality hit the market once again, and we dropped pretty much to the levels we saw before a ceasefire. We are at 16-17% just before the ceasefire, and we are at 17% chance now. I tend to agree with how the market views the situation. I even think the chances of a normalization should be lower here. But that's just because the rules of the market specify that for it to resolve to yes, IMF Portwatch needs to publish a 7-day moving average of transit calls equal to or above 60 for any date between market creation and end of April. So for now, when we look at Portwatch, they don't report crossings at all. It's still on April 5th. They should restart it as soon as there is some kind of normalization, but for the 7-day moving average, so this is the orange line here, you can see that it took a few days for it to reflect the reality on the ground as it's 7-day moving average. So it will also take kind of at least 7 days for it to go back to a proper level. And even if we get a deal today, not all of the ships will be so eager to move. Like the ships that are now inside the Persian Gulf will probably be very eager to move out, so not to be trapped again in case there is any escalation. But I would say there won't be a lot of ships coming in, and it will take at least a few weeks before we can see proper traffic for the strait, even if we get a peace deal today. This is also reflected when we look at a single day transit market. So you got 20 plus ships in a single day at 70%. This is a bit optimistic, but we had days with high single digit numbers. But when we look at 40 plus ships, we've only got 30% chance, and it's still not enough to resolve the market, the normalization market. Even if we look at 60 plus ships, so this is something we would need for 7 days to actually hit the resolution criteria. We are at 20%, which is awfully close to the normalization market that will require 60 plus ships every day for at least 7 days. This is probably a good indication that this market is mispriced. The chances here should be even lower. And this is indication that even during the time that we have hopes for the conflict to end, a proper normalization of trade and global economy is still far, far away. This is also reflected for the commodities prices that we see here. We see that before the weekend, both crude and Brent, so US oil and North Sea oil, are pretty much on par, while the Russian oil, so the Urals oil, is at $121 per barrel. This is aligned with my explanation of different types of oil, so depending on API gravity and sourness, different refineries around the world have different needs, and the Asian refineries that are the most hit by the whole crisis, they really require like medium heavy sour crude, which came from the Middle East. This is the kind of crude that Russia can provide easily, but the US oil is light and sweet, so it's not a good fit for Asian refineries. This is reflected in the prices, and even though we see some red here, as last week closed over 100, 96 for US oil and 121 for Russian oil, it's still crazy high, especially considering that physical markets, especially coming from Middle East, are a lot higher. So they're in the 150s last I checked. And lastly, before we reach some conclusions, let's try to understand if we should expect some regional escalation. So here we have a market for other countries joining the military action against Iran. And here the story is pretty simple. We've got UAE at 15%. This is mostly because there were rumors that they already engaged offensively, with their aircrafts being seen over Tehran. As you can see, there is a big spike here on the rumor. Then there was no official confirmation from anyone, so the chances normalized at around 15%. But they're still elevated because any day a proper confirmation can come. Other than that, Saudi Arabia is at 7% just because their east-west pipeline was hit. But as we know, there were no more hits after that, and the pipeline is fully operational by now. So chances of Saudi Arabia joining are low. They should probably focus on the defensive should ceasefire end. And any other countries, these are generally bond territory for now. So no regional expansion is expected. And pretty much the same thing is visible on the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait market. Trader gives only 13% chance we will see it closed by the end of April. Those chances dropped from almost 30% when ceasefire news hit, and even news on not such a good news on the first round of negotiation didn't really manage to increase chances here. The reality is that the Houthis, they have their own political and strategic goals, and closing the Strait of the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait is not something they really want to do right now, especially after the whole situation during Gaza war. So traders generally don't see it as very likely, even if a ceasefire end is here. And when we look at sharp traders, there are no huge positions here. There are no huge traders here. So this is generally not an interesting market, just because it can be risky, because it can happen. And at the same time, 88% is probably fairly priced and not very attractive compared to some other political bonds that are available on Polymarket. And lastly, before I reach some conclusions, we also have the Iran regime full market. This is the full view from December or from November. We can see that they increased pretty much when we learned that there is a military buildup in the region up to 53%. They increased once again to 56% on the news that Khamenei is eliminated. But then slowly but surely they were dropping down because the regime proved to be resilient. They survived the initial strike, they survived a month of fighting, and the general impression is that their position has strengthened relative to the start of the war. So I was always saying that the regime is stronger than many suspect. They had 50 years to build institutions. They're entrenched, they're highly motivated, they're ideologic, and it will be pretty difficult to do a proper regime collapse without like a full-scale ground invasion that will take months, because Iran is a country of 90 million people. So I'll try to be brief here, but to reach some conclusions, what the market is saying to us is that there is really nothing certain. So chances of permanent deal are low, chances of end of ceasefire are low as well, chances of US invasion are also low, and even chances of a prolonged ceasefire without escalation and without a tangible deal to end all the hostilities are also low. So I would say that traders on these markets don't really have huge positions as well, which for me means that everyone is waiting for at least one bit of proper information that can give us some more light on what is happening in the whole thing. And I hope in the next few days we will get some additional news about the negotiation. I hope we will learn some more. Expectation is that before market open on Monday, we should hear probably some bullish news from Trump. But then I would say the most important thing is what happens next week. So from Tuesday to Thursday, if we hear more bullish developments, either from Islamabad or general negotiations, this can be a good indication that we are on a good path to a permanent deal. Then at the same time, if the messages are rather bearish on any proper agreement, I would say that chances of the end of ceasefire should increase as we go into the next weekend. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening. I invite you to comment with any insights, any debate on the topic. If you have any questions, also hit me in the comments. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up, click that subscribe button. It really helps to spread the message amid all the fake news that are usually pushed here on YouTube. And also, if you want more detailed insights into what I think about the future, you should visit profitnotes.com, where I publish weekly my views on the market, global events, and also some long-term forecasts for the main future global events that happen. And if you are generally interested in global events, you should also look at my X, Profit Notes, where I publish daily my short commentary on the most immediate developments there are. So thank you for listening. I hope you got some important information from it. And I will see you next week for another round of Profit Talks, where hopefully we can analyze some proper developments, because for now what we got are mostly rumors, and the markets pretty much reflect that. So thank you once again, and see you next week.